Welcome to this deep dive. We've got a collection of sources you sent over about Combat 18 or C-18.
That's right.
Our plan today is to really dig into this material, what it is, where it came from, the legal side too, basically get to the heart of this neo-Nazi terrorist group.
Yeah.
But, without getting lost in every single detail.
Yeah, it's a lot of material. Detailed stuff, historical context. Our job is to sort of pull out the really crucial bits, trace how this group developed, what it became.
Okay, let's start with the name, Combat 18.
Hmm.
It definitely stands out.
It does.
The sources are pretty clear. The 18 is, well, it's code for Adolf Hitler. A is the first letter, H the eighth.
Simple code, but yeah, very potent. You also see C-18 used a lot, obviously, and sometimes 318.
318.
Right.
And the symbol, the Totenkopf, the death's head, it all feels very, very deliberate.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about signaling. If you're in the know, these symbols, these numbers, they tell you immediately who you're dealing with. Creates that in-group feeling. And the Totenkopf, well, that's got direct links back to the SS, doesn't it? Heavy dark history there.
Definitely. So when did this actually start? Where?
Sources point to 1992 in the UK.
Okay, 1992, UK. And founders. The names that pop up are David Myatt, Charlie Sargent, Harold Covington.
Mm-hmm. Those are the key early figures mentioned.
And the interesting part is the origin story, sort of. It came out of the British National Party, the BNP. Started as security, almost.
Yeah, that's what the sources say. A stewarding group, they called it, protecting BNP events. But it didn't stay that way for long.
Right. It seems they quickly spun off into something much more, well, extreme.
Exactly. C-18 developed its own hardcore ideology. Deeply neo-Nazi, white supremacist, white nationalist, and crucially focused on violence in a way that set them apart, even from other far-right groups at the time.
And that ideology, it's quite a cocktail listed in the sources. Neo-Nazism, white supremacy, sure, but also anti-gay, anti-Zionist, vehemently anti-Semitic.
A real toxic mix.
There's even a mention of a link to the Order of Nine Angles. That adds a whole other weird, esoteric layer.
It does. And their stated goal, according to the material, was basically paramilitary action. To start a white nationalist revolution against a, quote, Zionist occupation government.
Which is just, wow. Completely detached from reality, but incredibly dangerous thinking.
Precisely. That ZIOG idea, Zionist occupation government, it's a classic anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. It justifies their hate, their violence, and when you see accelerationism mentioned...
Yeah, that term comes up.
In this context, it means they believe society needs to collapse, or they want to make it collapse faster, violently, to build their white ethno-state. Paramilitary action is central to that. Force, not politics.
And it didn't just stay in the UK. The sources mention it spreading Germany, Canada, Spain.
Right. Headquarters listed in the UK and Germany. It went international.
That seems significant. A challenge for law enforcement, I imagine.
Absolutely. These groups aren't confined by borders anymore. The internet obviously helps spread the ideology, helps them connect. Big challenge.
So those early days, the sources describe violence aimed at immigrants, minorities, leftists, standard targets for these groups, unfortunately. But then there's this Red Watch magazine. That seems particularly nasty. Publishing personal details, photos, names, addresses of opponents.
Yeah, Red Watch was pure intimidation. Doxing, essentially, before we widely use the term. Putting targets on people's backs. It's designed to silence opposition through fear. It's not political debate. It's a threat.
And then things seem to implode internally. Around 1993, involving Charlie Sargent. Allegations he was an informer.
That's the story outlined, yes. Seems the accusation sparked a major conflict.
A lethal conflict, it turned out. The murder of Chris Castle, Catford Chris, by Martin Cross, who was in Screwdriver, the White Power Band.
That's right, former guitarist. Happened at Sargent's place. It just shows the raw violence bubbling under the surface and within the group itself.
And both Sargent and Cross got life sentences for that murder.
They did. It highlights the extreme volatility, the criminality, paranoia about informers fighting over, what was it, a mailing list and some tools. Escalating to murder says a lot.
After Sargent was jailed, law enforcement didn't just forget about C-18, did they?
No.
The sources talk about big raids, 1998 to 2000, UK, Ireland, Scotland Yard, even MI5 involved.
Yeah, a significant pushback. They arrested quite a few people. Sargent's brothers, Steve and Bill, were arrested, David Myatt again, and disturbingly serving British soldiers.
Soldiers involved. That's deeply concerning.
It really is. Shows the potential for this stuff to seep into state institutions.
And Adrian Marsden, also raided then, later became a BNP counselor. It shows the connections, doesn't it?
It illustrates that fluidity within the far-right scene, people moving between groups, sometimes into more political roles. We also see imprisonments mention Andrew Frayne, Jason Mariner, key figures at the time.
The sources also bring up a potential splinter group, the White Wolves, linked to Del O'Connor, who was apparently second in command in C-18.
Right, there's mention of that. And the White Wolves founding document, attributed again to David Myatt.
Myatt seems to pop up repeatedly, and his Practical Guide to Aryan Revolution was cited as inspiration for David Copeland, the London nail bomber.
A chilling connection. It underscores how extremist writings, these so-called guides, can directly fuel real-world terrorism. Whether the White Wolves were truly separate or just a rebranding, it shows how these networks shift and adapt.
Another angle mentioned is football hooliganism. The riot at the Ireland versus England match in '95 at Lansdowne Road, C-18 members were definitely involved, taunting Irish fans.
Yeah, that was a major, very public incident. Football hooliganism, sadly, has often been fertile ground for far-right recruitment in the UK and elsewhere.
And arrests of Sunderland hooligans, the Seaburn casuals, with C-18 ties before the '98 World Cup.
Exactly. They exploit those existing networks, that tribalism, for recruitment and organizing violence. The sources mention a failed CCTV operation too, highlighting how hard it can be to pin down evidence sometimes.
Moving back to the international side, German police raids in 2003. The ADL reporting chapters in the U.S., Illinois, Florida, Texas. Arrests in Belgium in 2006.
Right. A picture emerges of a fairly widespread, if maybe loosely connected, network.
And the Belgium arrests 20 members, and again, soldiers involved. 14 of them were in the military.
It mirrors the UK situation, doesn't it? The infiltration concerns clearly not limited to one country. It underlines the need for really strict vetting in armed forces globally.
Then there's Northern Ireland. Graffiti, C-18, on a Catholic oratory in 2008. Desecrating graves in 2009, including Bobby Sands. Just pure provocation.
Absolutely deliberate acts designed to inflame tensions, sectarian and racial hatred. It's vandalism as a political weapon.
And alongside that, ongoing racist attacks on immigrants by members. Seizures of weapons, ammo, explosives in different places, not just talk.
No, the seizures confirm the potential for serious violence. And then you have incidents like the 2010 attack on a mosque in Perth, Australia, Combat 18 Australia.
Yep.
Shows the reach.
Even their online forum being shut down in 2014. That doesn't kill the ideology, does it? It just moves somewhere else.
Exactly. The internet adapts. They find new platforms.
Then we get to a really significant event. The murder of Walter Lübcke, the German politician, and the alleged killer, Stephen Ernst, linked to the German C-18 branch.
Yes. Ernst's arrest and subsequent confession in 2019 seems to have been a real catalyst.
Why do you think that murder had such a major impact, leading the German government to finally move towards a ban?
Well, assassinating a serving politician, someone like Lübcke, who was known for his pro-refugee stance, it was a direct assault on German democracy itself. Previous violence was often against minorities or political opponents, horrific, but perhaps easier for the state to compartmentalize. This was different. Ernst's confession provided that undeniable link between C-18 and lethal political terror at a high level. It forced a confrontation.
Following that, we see concrete legal action. Canada listed C-18 and its affiliate Blood and Honor as terrorist groups in June 2019, first far-right group on their list.
A very significant move.
What does that designation actually do, practically speaking, in Canada?
Well, it ramps things up considerably. It means much tougher penalties for membership, fundraising, planning activities. It gives law enforcement broader powers for surveillance, investigation, freezing assets. It makes operating incredibly difficult, legally.
And then Germany followed through. January 2020, the ban on Combat 18 Deutschland, timed for the 75th anniversary of Auschwitz's liberation.
A hugely symbolic date. The ban itself cited C-18's goals being against the Constitution, criminal laws, international understanding, basically a fundamental threat.
Nationwide raids, assets seized, dissolution ordered, they weren't messing around, even though the estimated membership was small, maybe only 20 people.
Size isn't always the main factor. The German Interior Ministry explicitly linked the ban to the Lübcke murder and also the Halle synagogue shooting. It highlighted the potential for extreme violence from even a small, dedicated core.
And C-18 Deutschland challenged the ban in court, but lost.
Yes, the courts upheld the ban, confirming the assessment of the threat they posed. It was a decisive legal shutdown.
And finally, the sources note that in the UK, C-18 members are barred from joining the prison service, the police, the military.
Which seems like a basic, necessary precaution, right? Protecting those institutions from extremist infiltration,
Absolutely essential.
keeping them impartial, trustworthy.
So wrapping this up, we've traced Combat 18 from its violent birth in the UK far right, its hardcore neo-Nazi ideology, clear links to terrorism, spreading internationally, involved in everything up to murder, and now facing serious legal bans in places like Canada and Germany. It's quite a story.
It really is a disturbing one. From a BNP security group to an internationally recognized terrorist entity marked by consistent violence and hate, you've pulled the threads together well.
It's been eye-opening connecting the dots. You hear about these groups on the fringes, maybe, but the real-world violence, the international connections, the assassinations, it's a stark reminder of the danger.
Definitely. And understanding this history, the ideology, the tactics, the evolution, it's crucial if we want to recognize and counter this kind of extremism today, because it certainly hasn't gone away.
That leads to a final thought, really. We see these bans, these legal actions. But these ideologies, they're persistent, aren't they? And the groups adapt. So what are the ongoing challenges for society in tackling this stuff effectively, even after a group is officially banned? Something to really chew on. Thanks for walking through this complex history with me.